Today at Tough More, Arsenal didn't just win. They sent a message. Two headers, a tactical masterclass, and a clean sheet. Let's dive into how the Gunners took full control at Tough More and why the title feels closer than ever. Hello, Gunners. Welcome back to All About Arsenal. Today, we're going to have a match reaction stream to the game against Burnley. It was a very good victory that Arsenal had going to Tough Moor, one of the bogey grounds, obviously, bearing in mind that this is a team that can be a potential banana skin in the way to the title race. This one had everything: tactical precision, set piece excellence, relentless defending. Let's get into what happened and how Arsenal have given themselves some very, very good ground ahead of the chasing pack in the Premier League. Going into this game, Arsenal sat at the summit of the table in a raged vein of form. We had won our last 6 games in October, didn't concede any goal at all, and the haters were on serious hate mode, hoping that this would be the time and the game where Arsenal might probably struggle. However, Burnley is a team that have been keen to climb out of the relegation zone, and they've had some very interesting victories in their home, with Leeds United being the last team that suffered a defeat when they visited Tough Moor. So Arsenal knew that this was a game that they had to be very careful about. I'm very glad to know that Arsenal did enough to get the victory. I think when they confirmed lineups, as you would expect from a side like Burnley, they decided to play with five across the back, with Hartman on the left, the experienced Kyle Walker was on the right, then Laurent, Esteve, and Axel Twanzebe were the back three. In midfield, they had a combative combination of Leslie Oguchukwu, Fiorentino Luis, and of course the captain Josh Cullen, while Zane Fleming and Jaden Anthony were the ones in attack. Anthony has kind of hit a snag when you think about the way he started the season, this campaign, scoring loads of goals and creating a lot of assists. But in recent times, that number has kind of come down. To Arsenal, on the other hand, we had a certain David Raya in goal, doing his thing as you would expect. And the back line was the people we expect because these players all had well-deserved rests when Arsenal played against Brighton in the EFL Cup. Calafiori returned to the starting lineup. Of course, Timber was on the right with Gabriel and Saliba. Saliba was one that we were hoping to see on the pitch because he kind of left the previous game at halftime and there were concerns around him picking a knock and whatnot. But it was good to see him start the game. In midfield, we had Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi in a double pivot, as you would always expect. Then further up the pitch, we had Iberichi Eze behind with the Gyökeres, while Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard, played on the wings. This was a game that Arsenal needed to, get back to winning ways, bearing in mind that there are a couple of folks in the chasing pack playing late afterwards with the likes of Man City and Bournemouth locking horns tomorrow. And of course, Liverpool playing against Aston Villa this evening. I think the game is actually ongoing at the time of this recording. But it was good to see that everyone was all right. Obviously, we had some injury issues that we had to see contend with. Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard, just to mention a few that are sitting in the treatment table. But at least Arsenal had enough in the squad to come and be at Tough Moor to get a very good result. The opener arrived in the 14th minute through Viktor Gyökeres. The goal came from a corner. Everybody has been speaking about how Arsenal have been all about set pieces and stuff. But honestly, we don't care. Declan Rice swung in an amazing ball into the danger area. Gabriel was on hand to flick it, and Gyökeres not really home. The last time Gabriel flicked the ball for Gyökeres, he actually put the ball home in a different body part, but they are all goals, not the same. The set piece routines continue to, turn into perfection, pure execution from the team, and the goal on the line, Arsenal's going threat from dead balls. We have scored more corners than anybody this season. I think this was going to be the 8th corner that we have scored. That's where they go from. And the chasing pack are further down behind on that. Yes, there's so much talk of how Arsenal tends to score with only set pieces, but in all honesty, it's just unnecessary talk. Arsenal have done what they are good at. You can see that in addition to swinging the ball into the box, which you have amazing delivery from the likes of Saka and Rice, you also have players that all know where they need to be in the box. And you can see that we've had a couple of goals from the second nodding. There's not necessarily the first header into the goal. I've seen a lot of flick-ons. We've seen a lot of good goals from this regard. And Viktor Gyökeres, I was so happy to see him on the score sheet. He had not scored in the Premier League since Nottingham Forest, if I'm correct. Yeah, prior to the game against Atletico Madrid, he has scored just 3 goals, but this is his sixth goal now. So I'm guessing he should be our highest goal scorer right now. So I'm happy to see that the Gyökeres scored the well-deserved goal and had enough in the tank, to continue to play. However, there was some concern when Gyökeres was subbed at halftime. I'm really hoping that it's not an injury because the last time we had the player subbed at halftime was Saliba when he was injured. Mosquera's home against Newcastle was like punishment in quotes. And of course, Donny Madueke against Man City, we've not seen him since then. So we're going to wait for Mikel Arteta's post-match press conference just to verify that Gyökeres isn't injured because we're going to fly to Prague to play against Sparta in the Champions League this week before visiting the Stadium of Lights to play Granit Xhaka and Sunderland. But it was good to see that we scored a very good goal from the set piece, and the fact that Gyökeres scored it made me all the more happy. And of course, there was also the chances that Gyökeres also created. He created two big chances for Bukayo Saka. The first one was a transition play, got the ball, put Saka one-on-one. Saka had so many options. You could have chipped the keeper, you could have dribbled past him. There's so many things you could actually do. But unfortunately, he chose the wrong choice and played it straight at the goalie. The second one Gyökeres gave him was a bit more difficult for the goalie because he made a save. Then, of course, I think there was Trossard also that hits the rebound, but it was blocked off the line. So you could see that this was a very, very good goal for the team, and obviously it gave us the confidence we needed to continue in the game. Yep. Then we also had the settler from Declan Rice. 21 minutes after the opening goal by Gyökeres, there's a swift counter attack where Gyökeres supplied an amazing pass to Trossard, like a crossfield ball. I loved it. Trossard, as you'd expect, dallied on the ball a bit, then chipped it into the box, and Declan Rice was on hand to nod the ball into the goal. It just tells you about his overall evolution and impact this season. Declan Rice is such an amazing player. I always keep telling my friend that 105 million we paid for his services were certainly not enough. We should have paid more. That's awesome. And of course, with set pieces, we stand out here again. We directed the patterns, corner for the first goal, the movement, the pressing, the control, top notch. Burnley had no shot on target in the first half. Arsenal's set piece success is a clear weapon, and the fact that we are the best in the Premier League to do this, 8 goals in the opening 10 games from corners, is just amazing. On the other end of the pitch, we play 15 games now, considered just 3 goals. We're rock solid again. Burnley's first shot came all the way in the 73rd minute, and Arsenal fans were pissed about it. Right now, I know about conceding shots on target as well, and it's quite remarkable. This was our 7th clean sheet in 10 Premier League games, and I think 12 in all competitions. That was awesome. That was awesome. Looking at our tactics, this first half was one of the best that we played under Arteta. Arsenal controlled the game adequately, so well. And our improvement, the second half, we put like in autopilot mode somewhat, but it didn't matter because the lads did enough to get the result. They played like on cruise control. We just had kind of like a drop in our level, if we're being honest, in our precision and our control kind of drop. When Merino came on as a sub for Viktor Gyökeres, we lost that focal point in attack. While the win was very comfortable, our intensity dripped, and it's something that we need to be mindful of as the season progresses. And I'm so happy to see what the Arsenal players did in this game. Stars tactics were on point again. I love the substitutions. Hincapié coming in for Calafiori. Calafiori picked up a note against Crystal Palace. And will be managing this minutes very effectively. And of course, it's good to see that Hincapié also got some minutes associated with Luis Kelly. Luis Kelly played very well, 90 actually, against against Brighton in the Carabao Cup. It was good to see Hincapié get minutes. Christian Nogard also came on in the second half for Zubimendi, and he also had a very, very lovely shot that almost entered the goal, but Dubravka had to make a very solid save. Looking at the player ratings, I'll give Raya a 7. He was very bored, but later on, he almost considered when Marcus Edwards had a free kick that smashed the post. That free kick was very, very confusing. The ref was just crazy, acting like a prima donna, giving some kind of terrible calls to the Brighton, to the Burnley side, but it didn't matter. Timber, he didn't really have an influential game. I think the right hand side was not as good as the left hand side this time. And it's quite funny because the right hand side, they say we always have our biases, but Timber and Saka didn't really do too well. Saka had two big chances that he threw away, which was quite disappointing. On the left hand side, Calafiori and Trossard played very well. Trossard had an assist for the Declan Rice goal. Calafiori was obviously combative as we expect. The central defense, Gabriel gets an 8 from me. Of course, another combative defensive performance, another assist, more 10 defensive contributions. He was a monster for those that had him in FPL. Shout out to Coco, who captained him in his team. That was gangster. Of course, Saliba was, doing his Rolls Royce stuff, as you would always expect from him. In midfield, Martins Bimendi and Declan Rice. Rice gets an 8 for me. He has such a wonderful performance. Whereas Bimendi gets a 7 before he was sold for Nogard. This was a game that Iberechi Eze will want to forget. He wasn't as influential as he expected, but he created a couple of chances, but it wasn't really good enough. With Gyökeres, despite playing one half, he gets an 8 from me. This was basically his best game for us as a forward. He was everywhere, dominating in attack, scoring a goal, creating chances for his teammates, an all-action performance that should have even gotten more output if Saka had his shooting boots on. I'm very happy with the performance of the players, and that was really good for me. So what does this mean? Arsenal are currently on top of the table with 25 points. Bournemouth are on 17, 18. Tottenham actually lost to Chelsea, so they are all on 17 points. Obviously, when Man City plays against Bournemouth, the good part is that one of them will drop points. I'm hoping it's going to be a draw. That will be awesome for us. Liverpool are currently playing against Aston Villa. We're going to see how that game pans out with time. But going into the next game against Sunderland, we're certainly the most informed team. As you can see, all these wins are on the bounce. And Arsenal need to be very wary of each other Sunderland will pull. But before going to Sunderland, we have to focus on our Champions League adventure against Slavia Prague, which I know the Gunners are going to play very well. Yes, Slavia Prague is our next game in midweek. The team are going to fly to Prague. Thank God, we went into this game without any injuries. That in the new team and all that. Why we see it from the likes of Kai Havertz, Madueke, Odegaard, and Gabriel Jesus to come back to full fitness. So in conclusion, this was a full-blooded performance from Arsenal. Goals, defense, discipline, and dominance. Burnley were showing up. As the first half keeps this up, certainly the title will be up for grabs and to be within reach. So thanks for watching. This was a quick reaction stream. Don't forget to like, as always, and subscribe. And we'll see you at all about Arsenal for more Arsenal content. Till then, come on, you Gunners.